Good afternoon. I am not Becca the Bus right now. My name is Eugene Tan, and I am the performer behind Becca the Bus. In other light, and at other times, I would be in drag if you're still confused. I am going to take a moment and start by asking a question for everybody in this room. Please raise your hand if you have ever shopped at H&M. Very good. Keep your hand up there. This will be the raised hand of shame. Raise your hand if you've shopped at Topshop. No, H&M people, you're still part of this. Raise your hand if you shopped at Zara or Mango or Forever 21. That's most of us. A liar. Ladies and gentlemen, you can put your hands down now. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us who've raised our hands, and perhaps some of us who didn't, are all consumers of what is called fast fashion. So, what is fast fashion? Fast fashion is a way of retailing clothing in which runway trends are knocked off, produced quickly and cheaply, and brought to stores cheaply in very, very high volumes. Um, Examples of the kinds of knockoffs you can get at fast fashion. In the middle, you have a look from Balenciaga. On your right, you have a version from Mango. On your left, I believe that's Zara. On your left, a suit from Gucci. Next to it, a knockoff from Zara, followed by Celine. Yet again, Zara. A Gucci jacket, the Forever 21 version. What else do we have? Do we have one more? Yes. And then we have a Gucci t-shirt and we have a Topshop version. So what exactly are we talking about here? We're talking about clothes that are made cheaply, usually in countries that don't have a lot of wealth themselves, with a workforce that is often exploited, and conditions that we should perhaps suggest are perhaps less than ethical. They tend to feature not very great workmanship, let's be honest. They tend to be worn while the clothing is in trend and then very quickly discarded after that. The entire industry is fueled by mainly two desires. First, the desire for newness, right? We all like to buy something new and wear something new. It's kind of a nice thing. And secondly, and kind of ironically, also the desire to follow trends and not like stand out too much and not lead too much. You want to be in fashion, which is a nice way of saying you want to follow some rules. So let's talk about some fun facts about fast fashion, shall we? Who here has ever donated clothing to a charity shop? Very good. You were looking to pay your fast fashion forward. Well, here's the thing. 80 to 90% of clothing that is donated to charities meant for a charity shop never makes it to the shop. It gets sorted in centers like this one in Germany, and then it gets exported to the third world countries like Rwanda, like Indonesia, like various other parts of Africa, where it is then resold as clothing in the market. What that means is you have a third world buying clothing from the first world, but it also means that third world countries have their industries depressed, their industries of creating clothing on their own for their own markets depressed. Other parts of that 80 to 90% ends up being bundled off and recycled into such fabulous fabrics as fleece. Oxfam is a charity around the world. In the UK, they run charity shops. They report an increase of 2% year on year in 2017 of donations to the store. Yet again, of that 2%, 80 to 90% never makes it to the shop. In Singapore, up the street at SCWO, possibly the only thrift store in the middle of the city in Singapore, So much clothing gets sent to them that they very often just tell you, please don't bring it in anymore. We have no space. Um, because of this depressing effect on industries of the receiving countries of the stuff, the demand for secondhand clothing is actually decreasing worldwide. And countries like Rwanda that I just spoke of are looking to ban the import of secondhand clothing by 2019. The remainder of the stuff that doesn't even make it into recycling, the stuff that isn't even donated is discarded, right? Like most of us actually don't donate most of our clothing. And so the stuff that we don't donate ends up just discarded and is actually destined for landfills and incinerators. The thing about fast fashion is that it is driving this increase, right? So like we actually know that this increase in donations of clothing pretty much coincides with the advent of fast fashion, because all of a sudden we're buying a lot more clothing for a lot less money. We're not meant to hold on to it, so we have to get rid of it somehow. Fast fashion as an industry, because it is actually a business of knocking off designer fashion, fast fashion as an industry is not in the business of leading in any way, shape, or form trends, or for that matter, cultural production. It is not interested in any of this at all. In fact, very little thought in fast fashion is given to the actual cultural impact of its product. For example, this fantastic garment was very recently available from H&M, and it was only taken off the shelves at H&M because people literally rioted in the stores because it is fucking racist. It is a business that follows. It is fed by a desire to follow and not lead. So, ladies, gentlemen, and the rest of us, I'm going to move this along a little bit. Gender and the social rules that police it is a social construct, especially when we think about it in the context of clothing and of labor. Here's an example. Women are not supposed to be wearing anything with a very strong shoulder, unless it's from Balmain. Men aren't supposed to be wearing skirts, unless they're carrying bagpipes. Men stay out of the kitchen unless they're Gordon Ramsay, right? And men don't wear pink unless they're Lee Hsien Loong. I should say that while we're talking about rules and the sort of very arbitrary nature of rules, at this point you would have had a slide of Lee Hsien Loong at his National Day rally, but that was cut out. But ladies and gentlemen, let's just think about that for a second, all right? We live in Southeast Asia. Up north is Malaysia. In Malaysia, actually also in Singapore, people wear sarongs. What's a sarong if not a skirt? Since we're in Singapore, let's go back in history, let's talk about kimonos. What is a kimono if not a dress? In fact, a long flowing dress. And let's think about our oppressors. What are the Pope's robes? If not a long dress that's very heavily embroidered and quite ornate. Now, designer fashion, of course, has picked up on this idea, right? Designer fashion, quite unlike fast fashion, actually is very much like fast fashion. It just wants you to buy a lot of things. But designer fashion has to appear like it is leading in trends, and so they've caught on to this idea, right? And they are asking us to open our minds, and they are asking us to break the boundaries of these rules that govern gender. So for instance, we see the rise of the androgynous model. This is a model named Rain Dove. We do not know what Rain Dove's actual gender is. Rain Dove wears clothes of both genders and models clothes of both genders. Actually, I would like to say all genders, but you know what I mean. We see the rise, as in this case, of models being cast across genders on runways. So the clothing is obviously women's wear. This is Christian Siriano, Spring Summer 18. The model right in the front is very clearly a male body with a hairy chest. And in 2015, Selfridges, a very large department store in the middle of London, very much a department store that leads in trends in retailing. Selfridges gave over all their event space to a project called Agenda, in which Clothing from designers, existing clothing from designers, was sold without markers of gender. So that you never knew whether it was menswear or women's wear. I guess if you look close enough and you really want to care, you could decide which side the buttons were on. But for the most part, it was all sold together. And the idea of it was like it could be menswear, it could be women's wear, but it's all available to you, and it's all a soup, and we can all shop together. So in a sense, what fashion and the fashion industry is saying to you is, please have an open mind. It's asking you to have an open mind. And quite frankly, as a queer person, as a drag queen, as an activist, I am too. Now, I'm going to state a few things that are painfully obvious. I am very fat. I am also a drag queen, which means that the fashion industry, both fast fashion, high fashion, designer fashion, and actually also secondhand fashion, doesn't serve me. It never has. It very occasionally does, but very often, if you believed what the fashion industry is selling, then any woman who is my size doesn't really want to look like a clown, and men who are my size kind of want to look like they work in like hardware or something. Therefore, I make my own clothes. And people who meet me in my own clothes say things like, "I look very free." Because I don't have to care, because I'm like, my full-time job, I'm a drag queen. I don't have to care what the rules are. I just show up and then I kind of either not get any respect or just pretend like I'm getting respect. It doesn't really matter, right? But it means that I can be different. And it also means that I look fucking fabulous. You can clap now. But the point is, it helps to have an open mind, right? And it helps to have an open mind when we want to resist things like fast fashion and things like gender rules. How do we free ourselves of the tyranny of gendered clothing? How do we resist a fast fashion industry that's predicated not on the production of culture, but on the generation of vast amounts of waste? So I have an ambitious proposal for all of us in this room. Let's all make our own clothes. Sounds like a lot, right? That sounds like asking for a lot. Let's move from being proud of the things we chose to being proud of the things we've made. It's still asking for a lot, isn't it? So let's take a step back. Let's remake the clothing we don't want into garments that haven't yet been imagined at all. Everything that I'm wearing except my socks and my shoes today is remade from clothing that I don't want anymore. Every single thing. Well, it sounds like I'm wearing a lot of things. I'm only wearing 2 things. And there's a lot of denim, as you can see. Let's remake garments that we don't want anymore into new things. And let's enjoy it. And I see a little bit of questioning on your faces. And I'm going to guess at some of the thoughts here, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm going to guess one of the first things that people are thinking is like, I don't know how to make clothes. But that is the genius of working with clothes that you already own and don't already want. Most of that clothing's already made for you. You're just cutting it up and putting it together differently. That's all. Some of you are thinking, I am really afraid of looking bad. And I have to tell you, I'm constantly afraid of looking bad too. But we should also ask ourselves that if there is a difference between looking bad and looking unfamiliar. That which is new is maybe unfamiliar to the eye, but that doesn't mean it's bad, it's just new, right? And it just takes a little time. But at the same time, let's just think for a moment this idea of things looking bad. Let's think of 2 colors. Everybody think of 2 colors in your head that you imagine don't go together. Say brown and turquoise. And I can promise you that there has been a designer by now who's put that on a runway and proposed it as the proposal of spring, summer, whatever year. And that designer was probably Prada. You're also thinking, because I don't know how to make clothes, I'm afraid of wasting good material. But therein again lies the genius of working with stuff you already don't want, because you're going to throw it away anyway, so you're not wasting anything. I think that one of the one of the questions that people have about this idea that comes up over and over again is, isn't it going to take time? It takes time to make clothing. It takes time to craft. To which I say, correct, and it should. It is ridiculous that you can buy clothing cheaply that doesn't cost you any time, because actually it did cost time, and that time wasn't paid very well for, and somebody has to support a life on that t-shirt that you're wearing, for instance. So yes, it should take time, and the more time you spend on it, perhaps the more proud of things you will be. And lastly, I think people also say, because I don't know how to make things, I'm afraid of wearing something of low quality, or I'm afraid of wearing something that's very poorly made. But as all of you have already raised your hands, you already wear fast fashion, so you don't have a problem with poor workmanship. But I'm going to ask you for some baby steps instead. I know that's still asking for a lot, so I'm going to help you along. We're going to talk some really baby steps. First step, everybody, I ask you, open your mind, right? Just open your mind about clothing. Second step, take a moment and commit to the joys of creation and of being proud of creation. Third step, go home, or right now, take a garment you already own and wear it differently. Wear it in a way it wasn't intended to be worn. Maybe you wear it on a different part of your body. Maybe you're going to take a button-up shirt and you're going to somehow wear it as a skirt. Maybe you're going to take a t-shirt and you're going to wear it upside down. Maybe you're going to wear it sideways. But wear it differently from how it was intended. Try that for a day and actually walk out of the house in it. Be proud that you took a chance. Not many people in Singapore do. Now imagine how far you could go if you could take a pair of scissors to that garment. If you could cut it open, for instance. If you could cut off 2 sleeves so that you had more space to move around in. If you could cut a hole where there wasn't a hole before. Imagine the possibilities if you could do that. Now, imagine the possibilities of putting 2 or more of those garments together, and imagine what you could create. And you are already on your way. Thank you.